Easy handling of payments is very critical for any business out there. It's literally the lifeblood of the business. Now, what if you wanted an AI phone caller that's able to handle payments live during the call? What would this mean to your business? Whether it's collecting initial cash deposits or it's having the customer pay upfront for your product or service. Either way, point I'm getting to is taking payments during the call ascertains the customer pays with no delays. So today I'll show you how you can integrate payments into your AI phone callers, ensuring you can take payments live during the call. In this case, I'll be working with M-Pesa, which is a mobile money payment provider, but the principles stand. You can use the same principles to integrate Stripe, PayPal, Paystack, Flutterwave, or whatever payment provider you use at your company. Here's a demo.
How can I assist you today?
Hi, I'd like to order one mango passion juice.
Mango passion juice is a favorite. Last time you ordered the 1 liter option. Would you like to go for the 5 liter bottle this time? It comes with a 200 shillings discount, making it just 1800 shillings. What do you think?
Yeah, let's go with that.
Awesome. 1 5 liter bottle of mango passion juice, it is for 1800 shillings. Would you like to add a pack of almond nuts? They're super nutritious and great for your skin, heart, brain, and bones.
I think I'm good.
Most of our customers...
I think I'm good.
No worries. Just to confirm, you're ordering 1 5 liter bottle of mango passion juice. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Perfect. And just to confirm, is your delivery address still Simba Villas Estate in Embakasi, Nairobi?
Yes, that's right.
Great. Is the number you're calling with your M-Pesa number for payment?
Yes, it is.
Kindly check your phone for an M-Pesa payment prompt. Enter your M-Pesa PIN to complete the payment and let me know once you're done.
Yeah, I've managed to do the payment.
It seems the payment didn't go through as it was cancelled. Would you like me to send the payment prompt again?
Nah, I think I'm good.
All right, no problem. If you change your mind or need anything else, feel free to reach out. Have a great day.
So as you saw, it sent a payment prompt to my phone, and I was just to put my PIN, my M-Pesa PIN, to complete the payment. But in this case, I cancelled because it's an actual client project and it actually works, so I don't want to deduct my money. But if I was to put my PIN, it would complete the payment. The AI would say, yes, the payment was successful, then it would go ahead and process the order. As I mentioned, being able to handle payments during the call would really help your business grow a lot because you get so much cash upfront without having to wait for the customer to wait. Let's say you send them a payment link and now you have to wait for them to approve of the payment. Let's say if they forgot, now you have to go and reach out to them to confirm whether they paid. Like, it's a back and forth process you don't want. So let me show you how you can build such a functionality into the Voicebot. But if you're new to the channel, my name is Mutiso Mwadhime and I'm part of the team at Big Grip, where we help business owners unlock the next level of growth using AI and automation. I also share knowledge out there to help developers like me to be able to get better building AI systems. So let's jump into it. So I'm building the Voicebot over on Retail AI. It's another competitor of Vapi. So if you've heard of Vapi, it's very popular for building such AI voicebots. But of late, I've come to really like Retail because they make testing of the Voicebot very easy, and you don't have to consume a lot of resources to test your Voicebot. So for example, once I build my Voicebot, have the system prompt in place, I can just come here to test LLM and just chat with the Voicebot rather than having to speak with the Voicebot to test it. Because when I speak to the Voicebot, I incur the voice provider cost, I incur the AI model cost, I incur the transcriber cost, which is the speech to text model costs. Like, you can get to see how this can mount up when you're testing. So I'll just quickly skim through the actual system prompt. But the point of this video isn't to touch on building or prompt engineering. Point is to focus on the payment part. Okay, so I'll just quickly go through this. So this gives the role of the Voicebot your gem, a helpful, enthusiastic customer support agent of G Juice Bar. Your role is to respond to customer queries, take customer orders, and handle payments. You're an expert nutritionist who's very good at recommending products that boost someone's health, etc. Then here in the tasks, first task is to provide relevant responses to customer queries. Then your other task is to listen to the customer order, collect necessary information, let's say the name, order details, delivery address, payment phone number, etc. Confirm their details, take their order and process the order and payment. Then here I go ahead and just hard code in like the customer phone number, but in reality we were able to pick. So when the customer calls the AI Voicebot, we're able to pick their number, and that will be used, let's say, when handling the payments. because in this case we are using M-Pesa, which is a mobile payment provider, and all we need is just their M-Pesa phone number to be able to handle the payments. So in this case, this would be automatically extracted when the customer makes a call. Then we can put in here, the customer details are in this JSON. So how we've built this voice bot is we want the customer to feel remembered, such that when they call, they're not repeating the details that they had last time. Let's say we already picked their home address, or like they've been ordering mango passion juice most of the time. We want them to feel like our business actually remembers them, actually cares for them. So at the beginning of every call, we make an API call to our database or our CRM to obtain details on that customer, their name, their delivery address, their phone number, past order details, like they've ordered 2 liters of mango passion many times, they've ordered chicken, fries, like so many times. So all these are brought in as context to be used during the call. And trust me, your customers will really appreciate it. Customers hate repeating themselves, and by the fact that you're able to show that you remember actually shows that you care. So in regard to the specifics of the task at hand is when the customer calls, before starting any conversation with them, call the obtain customer info function to obtain any details we may have on the customer and save it to the customer info dynamic variable, and we introduce it here. So when you see here, we're saying the customer details are in this JSON. Then we say customer info and encapsulate it with curly braces, 2 curly braces, and this is how we're able to tell Retail AI in the system prompt that these variables need to come from somewhere, whether it's an external API or something. This is how you tell it. So you encapsulate the variable name with 2 curly braces. Then if I go to the complete right over here, then I click on that, I should be able to see the dynamic variable. So I repeat, whenever in the system prompt you put in a name of a variable, then encapsulate it with 2 curly braces, that's how you tell Retail AI that this is a dynamic variable and it should extract it and obtain it from somewhere. The details include their name, past order details, and delivery address. Use this information as context during the call. Then listen to them. If it's a general inquiry, use information in the knowledge base to provide a relevant response. Then immediately steer the conversation toward obtaining the order details. Now we are obtaining the customer's order. Then here is where we want the AI to be like, before obtaining the customer order details, it'd be like something like, oh, Mr. Customer, last time noticed you ordered our 5 liters of avocado passion or strawberry, whatever it is, juice. And would you want to order the same, or do you want to order something different? This is just to show the customer that we remember them, that we actually care and take keen interest to know what they actually like. So ensure to start with a personalized recommendation based on their past orders. Then we move on. Then go ahead to obtain all the items they want to order. Ensure to proactively upsell them on more items to boost AOVs. This is extremely critical to the success of our business. Now this is the meat, actually, the payment handling part. So when the customer is ready to pay, run the send payment prompt to send them an M-Pesa payment prompt to their phone number. You will receive a JSON response that looks something like this. Note that this is just an example. So this is the JSON response. When we send the M-Pesa prompt, that is to their phone. Let me just grab my phone here. When the customer obtains the payment prompt on their phone over here, we will use the M-Pesa API to send that payment prompt to their phone. When the payment prompt has successfully been sent to their phone, a JSON response will be sent back through the API, and that will look something like this. Then we will use the checkout request ID that comes back in order to check whether the payment was successful or not. So I want us to be clear on how the M-Pesa API works. We will use the M-Pesa API, a specific endpoint URL that we will get from M-Pesa API documentation, to be able to initiate the payment prompt to the user's phone number. In order to do that, we only need 2 things. That is the customer's M-Pesa phone number and the total order amount. We will use this to trigger the payment prompt to be sent to the person's phone number using the M-Pesa API. Then a JSON response will be sent back. Okay, so first of all, it doesn't matter whether they receive the payment prompt or not, or whether they actually end up paying from the payment prompt. It doesn't matter. A JSON response will always be sent back. So the JSON response will enable us to do 2 things. Okay, the first thing is to check that the payment prompt actually was successfully sent to the user's phone number. Then 2, we will get a checkout request ID. Think of it like a transaction ID that we can use to check whether the payment was successful or not. So those 2 things you can see in the JSON response. Let me show you that. So here you can see there's a merchant request, leave that. There's this checkout request ID that shows this is the transaction ID of this specific payment. use this to check whether it was successful or not. Then there's this response code 0. Response code 0 shows that it successfully sent the payment prompt to the user's phone number, and you'll notice it's response code, not result code. So there's a difference. In the next one, you'll see we are using result code, but response code 0 shows that the payment prompt was successfully sent. If it's any other number but 0, means that it wasn't successfully sent. Then you can see in the response description, success, request accepted for processing. The payment prompt has been sent. So naturally, when you send the payment prompt and the user actually puts their M-Pesa PIN and completes the payment, you'll have a callback URL. So the M-Pesa API will need to send the details on whether the transaction was successful or not to some URL so that we can, let's say, process the order etc. So we will have what we call a callback URL, which is a URL that we will send through the API request when we are initiating the payment prompt to the user's phone number. We will have a callback URL there, and that callback URL is what the M-Pesa API will use to send back details on whether the user actually ended up paying. Okay, so there are two things there. There will be a JSON response that will be sent back when the payment prompt has been successfully sent to their phone, but also when they end up paying, so they put the M-Pesa PIN, those details will be sent to your callback URL. In theory, that's how it's meant to work, but that's the thing with APIs out here. Sometimes they're not as reliable, and that's the case now with the M-Pesa API here. Sometimes it might delay sending the details, so when the user actually puts the M-Pesa PIN and completes the payment, we expect the callback URL to receive data that the payment was successful. But sometimes it delays, sometimes it does send the data, sometimes it never sends. So this is going to be such a poor customer experience, because the customer is expecting the AI to be like, oh yeah, I've received your payment, let me continue processing your order. But since the M-Pesa API isn't reliable on sending data to the callback URL, we will need to do another API call in order to check the payment status. Okay, and for that is where the checkout request ID will come in handy. So the checkout request ID, when the payment prompt was sent, remember I mentioned that a JSON response will be sent back from the M-Pesa API to our AI Voicebot, and that will be stored in the context during the call, including the checkout request ID, which we will capture, then do another API call in order to check whether the payment was successful or not. I'm telling you this because you will turmoil and toil and wondering why your callback URL is not receiving data. And okay, to be frank, actually, let me break it down. What is a callback URL in this case? You will have an API function that you have deployed to a server out there. Then you'll get an endpoint URL. That will be your callback URL that you will use in order to receive data from the M-Pesa API, whether the payment was successful or not. So that is a callback URL. It's just a URL that is standing in place for a certain API function that is in its backend. And to see that practically, let me just show you. So here in my code is the actual API function that I'm talking about. That is represented by the callback URL. Okay, so this is Python. Looks like a lot of code, but I'll make it make sense. And I'll come back to all this code when we are actually going into integrating the M-Pesa payment functionality. So for this is how the API will look like. Then we deploy it to a specific URL. So when I go to urls.py here, you're able to see that I import from the views.py file. So you see the function is this views.py is in this views.py file. So we will import it here. So you can see from .views, which is from the views.py file, import stk callback. Then we will deploy it to a URL called stk_callback. Then we attach. So when this URL is called, it will know that this is a function that handles that. Okay, and that how it will look in practical sense. It will look something like https://ngrok something URL, okay, /API/send. So this actual SDK callback. Okay, so this is how it will look like. So once we send the payment prompt and get back this JSON response, we will say obtain the checkout request ID, as it will be used to confirm the payment status, just as I mentioned. Then we move on. Once the customer verbally approves that they have made the payment, run the check payment status function to check if the payment was successful. You will receive a JSON response that looks something like this. Note that this is just an example. So why am I saying note this is just an example for both cases? Is so that the AI doesn't use the same JSON response for all customer interactions, because this will change based on different customers. So for different customers, it will have different checkout request IDs, and we don't want it to and we don't want it to check the payment status for customer A when we're dealing with customer B. That's very critical. So ensure you have it there as this is just an example. So this is the JSON response that comes back, and the important part is just these two parts. So the result code and the result description. If the result code is 0, means that the customer has successfully paid. But if it's any number but 0, means there was an error or the user cancelled the payment, etc. Then the description will be given down here, request cancelled by user, or depending on the actual error. And you see we say it there. If the result code is any number but 0, then the payment was unsuccessful. Inform them that the payment didn't go through, giving the reason provided by result description. And I think let me just add in a human-like conversational manner, because I noticed sometimes it will just say the reason being request cancelled by user, which isn't conversational. We want it to read this, then notice, oh, the user cancelled, then it be like something like, oh, notice the payment didn't go through as you cancelled the payment. Do you want me to send the payment prompt again? We don't want it to be like, oh, we noticed that the payment wasn't successful, the reason being request cancelled by user. Doesn't sound conversational or human-like. Then before going into actually implementing the functionalities in place, let me just finalize on the system prompt. So here we give some context on the business at hand and what they do. Then here in the examples, we give an actual script of a back and forth conversation between the AI and the user. And the important part is mainly in the function calling part. So you can pause and read through the actual script itself. But the important part, I'll just scroll down here where the AI will be like, it has obtained all the order details and confirmed the user's home address for delivery. Then it will be like, is this number you're calling with your M-Pesa number? Then the customer will be like yes or no. Then they give out the M-Pesa number. If no, then we tell the AI run the send payment prompt function in order to initiate the payment prompt. Then the AI is like, kindly check your phone for an M-Pesa payment prompt, enter your M-Pesa pin to complete the payment, then inform me once you're done. Why are we saying this? Inform me once you're done is because the AI will never know whether the payment was successful or not until the user says, oh, I've completed the payment, so that the AI can now make another API call to the same M-Pesa API, just a different endpoint URL, to check whether the payment was successful or not. And as I mentioned, we use the checkout request ID for that. So you're seeing this checkout request ID for that. And I insist, why is this important is because the call could just stay silent, okay? The user has completed the payment. The AI doesn't know the user has completed the payment because the user hasn't mentioned anything. And since the callback URL isn't functioning as meant to, we will just stay there. The AI doesn't know the payment was successful or not. We're consuming resources, which is a waste, okay? So we need them to tell us, now check whether it was successful or not. I'm saying tell us, but in reality, tell the AI, okay? Then the customer will be like, I've made the payment. Then we say run the check payment status function to confirm if the payment was successful. And notice for this, we are having it in capital letters is when you're providing such an example script, we want it in capital letters so that the AI doesn't verbally utter this out, so that it knows this is not part of the script, but is meant for me to just execute the function. So run the check payment status function. If you have it like just in small letters, you're risking having the AI say it back to the user, Mr. User, run the check payment status function, blah, 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 whatever. You get the point. So once it has confirmed whether the payment was successful, it will go ahead and process the order using the process order function, which is for another day. But yeah, that's how it is. In the notes, it's just more cautioning, so you can pause and read through that. One note that I normally have in all my system prompts is what I normally call prompt seasoning. So just picture Salt Bay there, sprinkling in some prompt seasoning, making your AI voice bots more conversational, more human-like, more caring, and the likes. And that is this paragraph down here. This one here. When generating a response, aim for a casual and conversational tone. Think of how you might talk to a friend in a relaxed setting. So pause and read through this. You can copy this or just take a snapshot of it, then paste it in whatever voice bot you build. Then come thank me later. Now once you have the prompt in place, click save. In regards to the AI model, we'll work with GPT-4o, which is outright the best AI model for AI voice bots. Then in the voices, I normally go with 11 Labs because they have the most human-like voices. It can be a bit more expensive than the other providers, but it's worth it. So check through for a voice that meets your accent. Then let's go into the functions itself. So the first function is for sending the M-Pesa payment prompt, and we called it send payment prompt. So let's go and create it. So here under functions, click on that. You can see I already created it, but I'll add a new one. click on custom function, then give it a name, something like send M-Pesa prompt. Then give it a description, something like this tool is used for sending the customer a payment prompt to their M-Pesa phone number. I normally like insisting that you don't fill this up with so much gibberish, like so many paragraphs of just for you to explain to the AI that this tool is meant to handle sending the payment prompt. If you have such a very long paragraph to explain something simple as this, you're risking the AI not being able to tell that this tool is meant to do this, okay? And your function calling will be unreliable. Then your URL here is where you'll paste in your server URL that is serving as the interface to interact with the API that handles sending the payment prompt. So for this, we're using Python code as I showed you initially. So let me show you that. Let's go to the function itself. So here I'm on the actual Python code that is hosting the APIs that is going to, first of all, initiate the payment prompt. Second of all, check whether the payment was successful or not. And don't worry, it looks like a lot of code, but I will make it make sense. So before starting, in order to deploy this, first of all, go to the link in the description to get access to all this folder. It is a Python Django project that is hosting the APIs. So go ahead and click the link in the description to access the GitHub, then download the folder, then extract it. Then you're able to run it within your local computer. So I would advise for you to download VS Code, which is Visual Studio Code, which is the platform you're using over here, so that you can be able to walk this journey with me. So in order for this project to work on your local computer, you will need to have Python installed on your computer. You'll also need to have some Python libraries that are being used within this project in order for it to work. So for that, I've created what we call a requirements.txt file, which is a file that normally stipulates the Python libraries that are to be installed on your server. So in this case, I'll click on it, and you can see a bunch of written Python libraries and their specific versions that you need to download. So go ahead to your terminal. There's a shortcut here. So Control plus there's this single quote that normally looks slanted, so you can click on that, or just come and click on these three dots, terminal, new terminal. Okay, then you'll arrive at this. Then first of all, you want to ensure that you're on the actual folder that contains the code. So you can see mine is located at project/voicebot_mpesa. So that is the name of the entire folder. So in this case, I'll do pip install -r requirements. Can I really type requirements.txt? Then you'll click enter, and this simply means install all the Python libraries recursively. So this is one at a time. Install them one at a time until you've finally installed all of them into my local computer. Then after installing all those libraries, you want to come here and run python manage.py run server. Okay, so that is how we run the actual server, so that we can be able to access it. So when I click enter, it will have something like this. So I've already run the server. Then in order to make it accessible over the internet so that we can make API calls to it, we need to expose the APIs. For that, we are using what we call ngrok. Okay, so ngrok enables you to have your local APIs accessible over the internet. Because the thing is, if you want to make an API call to a specific API, that API has to be accessible over the internet. But in this case, this API is only accessible from my local computer. So to expose it, I use ngrok. Okay, so let me search that. So you'll go to ngrok.com. You can call it ngrok or ngrok, whatever it is, depending on who taught you English or your accent. Then you'll come down here, scroll till you see get ngrok. Then you'll download based on your whether you're 64-bit operating system, 32-bit, or whether you're using Mac OS or Linux. So download the zip folder, extract it, and install ngrok to your local computer. It's just a simple procedure, so I won't go through that. Then once you do that, you want to come to your local computer and search ngrok. Okay, then you'll see the folder itself. Okay, click on it. Then you want to click on the application over here. So you see an application here, click on it in order to open it. So it's just like CMD or command line. I'll expand it. Then in order to expose your local APIs, you want to do ngrok. Okay, ngrok HTTP, then the port of the actual server. In this case, it's exposed under localhost port 8000, so I'll do 8000 as the port. If I was deploying, let's say, a React.js project, React.js is normally on localhost port 3000, so in this case I would come and do it at localhost port 3000. Okay, but in this case Django is normally hosted on port 8000, so I'll put 8000. Then when you click enter, it will give something like this. So I have already exposed the API, and it will give you the endpoint URL that you're meant to be able to access the APIs. So you will copy this, select it, and click Ctrl C. Then let's go back to Retail AI over here, then paste it in here, then do /API/ then let's go back and see the actual URL in order to send the payment prompt to the user's phone number. So you can see the API function itself is this one, send M-Pesa SDK. That is the name of the API. But in order to access it, we need to deploy it to a URL. So for that, we go to urls.py, which is in the same folder. So you can see we are importing the actual API function, which is send M-Pesa SDK. You can see that matches this over here, send M-Pesa SDK. And you can see we are importing it from .views, which is from the views.py file. Then we want to deploy it to a URL. In that case, that is send us _ SDK. So, and you can see when I hit this URL, this is the function that will handle the functionality. So for that, I'll copy this as is, then come and paste it in there. Then now we need to have some parameters in place. So this is the data that will be sent to the API in order to initiate the payment prompt. So for that, as I mentioned, we just need the M-Pesa phone number and the order amount. So for this, let's just click on example 1 to see the kind of structure that Retail AI is expecting in order to extract the information from the call. Because we will need to extract the phone number from the call as well as the order amount from the call. So for that, Retail AI has a way of extracting this information. So I'll copy all this. So Ctrl A, Ctrl C. I'll open a new tab, then search jsoneditoronline.org. Then I'll Ctrl A, delete all that, then Ctrl V to paste it in there. Then I'll alter this in order to fit my use case. Okay, so for this, I know I'll need two variables. What is that? The phone number and the order amount. So let me go to the API function to see how it's expecting the data to come in. So here in views.py, I scroll down, I can see I need the phone number and the amount. Okay, and how it's structured is phone and amount. Okay, so I'll copy this as is phone, come and replace it in here. The data type is string and the description is this. Let me just remove all this, then be like, this is the customer's payment phone number. Just that. Then I'll do the same thing for amount. So I'll copy all this until there, then come and paste it in here. So I'll first put a comma, then put enter, then come back, then see I need it as amount. So I'll copy that, then come paste it in here. It's a type string, just leave it at that. I mean, you could have it as type number, but in this case type string still works. This is the total order. Can I really type amount? Okay, then we want to stipulate that both these fields are required fields before calling the function. Okay, so I'll paste it in there, phone as well as amount. Copy that, paste it in here. Okay, the good thing with JSON editor is it ensures the final JSON that you get is syntax correct, because there are specific syntax that, by syntax is the way that specific language is expected to be structured. Okay, if I remove this comma over here, notice an error occurs. Why is this? It's because I have two objects that are following each other, but they have nothing that is separating the two. So the JSON doesn't know that this is a separate object from this one. So I need to have a comma in place, and JSON editor ensures that I have everything in line. So I do Ctrl A to select it all, Ctrl C to copy it, go back to Retail AI, then remove that and paste it in there. Then I'll click on format JSON just to ensure it's well structured. You don't have to do that, but I just like doing that. Then click outside to save, then click on save. So I've added it in there, so you can see send M-Pesa prompt. If I was to change it here, I would come back to my system prompt, and whenever I see send payment prompt, I replace it with send M-Pesa prompt. But in your case, I just advise, I've given the function name as send payment prompt, so also have yours as send payment prompt to make things easy. So don't worry, I'll explain what all this code is doing. But for that, let me first add the function for checking whether the payment was successful or not. So I'll click add, then custom function, then same case. So this case, I'll say this is check payment status. Let me say status 2. So check payment status 2. Then this tool is used to check whether the payment, and then I really type, was successful or not. Then for the URL, let's go back to ngrok, then copy this URL as is, Control C, paste it in there, then it's /API/ then let's get the exact endpoint URL from our code. So I'll go to urls.py here and check. It's called check payment status. So I'll copy that, come back and paste it in there. Then that's the full endpoint URL in order to check the payment status. Then similarly, we can just use the same JSON data that we have here in order to obtain the checkout request ID. Because in this case, let's go back to our code to see the kind of data that we're expecting in order to check the payment status, which I think I already mentioned is the checkout request ID. But when I scroll down here till the function for checking payment status, you can see it there. It's expecting just one thing, that is the checkout request ID. This business shortcode will hard code it in, but in this case, we need the checkout request ID from the data that comes from the API request. Okay, so going back here to JSON editor, I'll change this and call it checkout request ID. So first, let me remove this amount because I don't need it. And notice when I remove it, I need also to remove the comma to ensure it is syntax correct. Then I come here and say checkout request ID. I normally like having my variable names in camel case, which simply means the first letter of the word is in small letters, then any subsequent word will start with a capital letter, then the rest is small, apart from such an abbreviation word. Okay, so it's a type string. Then I'll say this is the checkout request ID used to check the payment status. Then I'll say that it is a required field, so I'll copy that, replace it in there, then remove this amount. Okay, then I'll do Control A to copy all that, then go back to retail, then paste it in there. So you can click format JSON or not. What that does is just you see, it just brought this down here for it to look more beautiful, more appealing code wise. Then you'll click on save. So in order for your code to work, I'll just show you. You don't need to understand what the code is actually doing. I'll just tell you what you need to replace in order for it to work. So you can see the variables, I've put them over there. So you need your consumer key, your consumer secret, your pass key, your shortcode, and this callback URL, you can actually remove it. For the shortcode, this is, if you're using an M-Pesa till number, you will have your till number here as the business shortcode. If you're using a pay bill, you will have it here accordingly. So in order to get this consumer key, consumer secret, you'll need to create a Safaricom developer account. You'll go and search this developer.safaricom.co.ke as is. Then you won't be logged in, so you'll see a button of get started or sign up. You will sign up and log in. Then once you log in, you want to click on my apps. So actually I need to log in now. So I'll put my email there and my password. Then click login. Then you'll come here and click on create new app. Give your app a name. Something like Voicebot M-Pesa SDK3. I'm a bit lazy to look for a name, so I'll just do that. Then the API I want to access is this Lipa na M-Pesa sandbox. Then click on create app. Okay. Then what you'll do is you'll just click on copy consumer key, come back and paste it in there. Then copy consumer secret, come back and paste it in there. Then for the pass key here, this is standard, so you won't replace this until you take this functionality live on your Safaricom dashboard. So let me show you that. So when you go to home here, let me just drag it here. You will see a button here, go live. This means that currently it's at tester account, but now you can click go live in order to take the payment functionality live. And by live simply means actually using your business till number or your business pay bill, because in this case you will use the standard shortcode, which is this. So you can see this shortcode is for when you're using a tester account or a sandbox. We call it a sandbox. So this won't change for the shortcode and the passkey if you're working with the sandbox. But once you're now taking it live, so that you're working with your till number or your pay bill, you will need to go here and click go live. When you click go live, you will follow some instructions. Then Safaricom will send you your live pass key to your email address. Then you'll copy that, then come back and paste it in here. Then you do the same thing for your shortcode. So you'll do the same thing for this file. So you come here to functions.py and do the same thing. Replace your consumer key, your consumer secret, your passkey on shortcode depending on whether you're taking it live or not. Then that's all you need to do. But just to quickly skim through to understand what the code is actually doing, we will obtain the phone number and the amount from Retail AI Voicebot. Then we generate a token that will be used in order to access the M-Pesa APIs. So whenever you want to access the M-Pesa APIs, you will need an access token. So for that, we are using a function called generate_token, which we are importing up here. So you can see from dot functions import generate underscore token. Then when I go to functions.py, I can see the function that's actually doing that. So this is the function that generates the access token. Then we get the timestamp because we'll need it to create the password. Then this is the password that will be passed on when we are making the API request. So you can see here there's a password field and it's expecting this SDK password. And what is that SDK password? Is this encoded version of our password, which will require the shortcode plus the passkey plus the timestamp. They will be combined together, they will be encoded, then that will be the password that will be used. So there are two things. There's the access token and a password. Don't confuse the two. Access token enables you to fast access the M-Pesa API. Then the password will be sent through the API body in order to verify all things. Then we have the URL endpoint that is used in order to send the payment prompt to the phone number. All this you get from the M-Pesa API documentation. So if you want to go through that, you can go to the Safaricom here, then you click on docs. Or when you go to the actual API, so let me go here to the actual APIs. So you'll come here. M-Pesa Express API is the one we're using to initiate the payment prompt. Click on simulate. So here is where you're able to actually simulate sending a payment prompt to your phone number. So you can do that. Click on here, click on the actual app that you're working with. It will have some dummy data in place. So you can change your phone number here, then click on simulate request. You should expect to get a payment prompt on your phone. Then here in the documentation, you can read through that and see the kind of data it's expecting. So you can see all this is similar to all this that you're seeing here, so the request body. Then you can see what each field is. So you can see the description. You can see for the business shortcode, this is the organization's shortcode, that is the pay bill or buy goods till number that the business is working with. Then you can see in the password, this is the password used for encrypting the request sent. This is a base 64 encoded string, and the string is a combination of the shortcode, the passkey, and the timestamp. And that's why if I come back here to the code, you can see in the password, this is how I was doing it. I first needed to encode it because you saw in the documentation it needed it to encode it. Then I need it in the shortcode, passkey, and the timestamp. Then in the headers of the API request, we will pass in our access token that we have generated over here. Then in the request body, we will fill in the details accordingly. So the shortcode, SDK, password, timestamp, all these things that you're seeing here. For the callback URL, in this case I removed it, but in your case you can just have it as empty. Then we can move on. Then here's where we make the API request. So it's a try except block. So try making the API call. If you run into an error, handle the error with this. Okay, so here is where we make the API call. We pass in our request body accordingly, as well as our headers for authorization purposes. Then once it has sent the payment prompt to the user's phone number, we return a response containing the JSON that we see here. So you're seeing this JSON that we give as an example in the system prompt. That's what is returned. Then for the SDK callback, I won't touch on this because actually we don't end up using it. So I'll go and touch on the check payment status. So you can see, first of all, it expects the checkout request ID. So we obtain that from the data that comes from the API request. Then we will get the business shortcode, which we get it from up here. We get the timestamp, and the timestamp is the current time, which we get from an inbuilt Python library called datetime. Generate the password just like initially. This is the URL endpoint from M-Pesa API documentation that checks to see the status of the payment. We generate the access token as I mentioned. We pass in the access token through the headers of the API request. Then in the body, we pass in those four things, that is the shortcode, password, timestamp, and the checkout request ID, which is the most important part. Then here is where we actually make the API call. So we will try making the API call. If there's any error, we will capture the error and send back a response saying error obtaining payment status. Then we showcase the actual error. So if you make an API call and it's successfully checked whether the payment was successful or not, we will send back a response. So notice, whether the user paid or not, being able to check the payment status successfully, we will need to still return the response. So it won't go through the error if the user cancelled the payment. It should still go through a successful checking of the payment status. So in either case, whether the payment was successful or not, whether the user cancelled the payment or not, being able to check the payment status successfully should return a response JSON containing the status of the payment. If it's not able to check the payment status, then it's going to go through the error. So notice, it's not going to return a response here only when the user paid, even when they don't pay. Then yeah, that's it. You can come here and just do a quick tester to see whether it's working. So I'll test it.
Hey there. Welcome to Gem's Juice Bar. How can I assist you today?
I want to order some passion juice.
Great choice. Passion juice is a favorite. What size are you looking at? We have 250 milliliters
let's go with the 5-liter bottle.
Awesome choice. The 5-liter bottle of passion juice is 3,000 shillings, but with our 200 shillings discount, it's just 2,800 shillings. How many bottles would you like?
Just 2.
Perfect. 2 5-liter bottles of passion juice will be 5,600 shillings. Would you like to add anything else? Maybe some honey or a health supplement like baobab powder to boost your immunity? Most of our customers love pairing these with their orders.
You know what? I think I'm okay.
All right, so just to confirm, you're ordering 2 5-liter bottles of passion juice for 5,600 shillings. Could you share your delivery address?
It's 123 Main Street.
Got it. Delivery to 123 Main Street. Is the number you're calling with your M-Pesa number for payment?
Yes, it is.
Kindly check your phone for an M-Pesa payment prompt. Enter your PIN to complete the payment and let me know once you're done. Just checking in. Were you able to complete the payment? Let me know if you need any assistance.
Yeah, I've made the payment.
It seems the payment didn't go through as it was cancelled. Would you like me to send the payment prompt again so you can retry?
Nah, I think I'm good. So I noticed it sent the payment prompt to my phone number, then I cancelled because I don't want it to deduct from my M-Pesa. Because that's the thing. Yes, we are working with the Sandbox, which is a test account, but M-Pesa actually deducts money from your M-Pesa, then they refund it after a while. So it's not that they will stay with the money, they will refund it, but not immediately. So take note of that. So if I check here in my ngrok, you can see 2 requests were made. First is to the sending the SDK, which is the payment prompt. The next is for checking the payment status. So you can see both of them show that the status code is 200, which means that was successfully done. 200 okay, 200 okay. Then yeah, that's it. That's how you're able to integrate M-Pesa payments into your AI Voicebot. As I mentioned initially, this is just giving you a basis of what you're able to work with. You're able to leverage the same principles to integrate PayPal, Paystack, Stripe, Flutterwave, or whatever payment provider you use at your company, because the principles stand. If you don't want to work with our team to build such powerful AI systems, go ahead and click the link in the description to book in a meeting with our team. Anyways, that's it from me. Till next time, stay servy. Peace.